One of our top stories where the Alexandra inquiry is underway. Our reporter Maageketla Mohlabe has more for us on this. Maageketla, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming through. Now, the City of Joburg's manager, Mr. Lukwareni, denying authorizing the demolitions, but saying that as an accounting officer, he will take political responsibility of what happened. Talk to us about your conversation with him.
Well, of course, I mean, one of the statements that kept coming through in this inquiry, and of course, the Commission keeping on with those pressing questions to say who authorized those evictions on Friday when we saw dozens of families left in the cold and, of course, homeless following those evictions. We understand that about 80 houses were demolished by the Red Ants, and, of course, we understand that this after some alleged court order. But asking the city manager, Mr. Lukwareni, he basically says that in as far as he is concerned, he did not authorize the demolition of those houses. He only says that as an accounting officer in the city of Johannesburg, yes, I do take responsibility for what happened on Friday, but he says that I'm not the one who actually authorized those evictions. But of course, he was also pressed in terms of, was there a meeting in terms of actually letting these particular evictions to go ahead on Friday? He says that, yes, there was a meeting on Thursday by city officials. He says that he wasn't there himself, but he understands that that meeting was part of these particular evictions, and of course asked whether there was any sort of notice to actually give these people, or the residents that we know that are now affected. He says that that will only come out after this investigation. He says that there is an investigation that's underway, or that's been actually effected to investigate these particular evictions as to how they were handled. So through that particular investigation, we will know, we'll get clarity in terms of what transpired in that meeting and who also authorized this particular evictions. But again, he keeps on, according to the Commission, contradicting himself because the Commission doesn't sound convinced by this particular explanation. They are saying that the City of Johannesburg should have known better. And again, Buan Jones, the inquiry chair, saying that there is no court that would actually give you a court order to evict people without providing them with an alternative accommodation. And that's exactly what we saw on Friday when those families were left in the cold. They were frustrated and, of course, saying that the City of Johannesburg or the officials in the City of Johannesburg don't seem to actually care about them. But of course, he kept on emphasizing that City of Johannesburg is the city that cares about the people of Alexandra and around the surrounding areas of Alexandra. And of course, in terms of the service delivery, he actually was grilled in terms of the raw sewage that appears to be exacerbating in Alexandra. And of course, you'd recall, Palisa, just recently we were doing a story in Alexandra where we saw graves sinking in raw sewage and families saying that we are being made to mourn again. And this is the question that was brought forth by the Commission here today to say, what is the city doing to address this situation? They are saying that they do attend to these issues about 30 days in a month or after a month. And according to the Commission, this is not really what is supposed to be happening. Human rights violations are actually in display according to them, and the city needs to actually up its game in terms of delivering services to the people of Alexandra.
Yeah, and it seems quite contradictory, if one can say, Maageketla. The city manager saying they did not authorize it, or himself did not authorize it, but at the same time saying that the city target was your incomplete, illegally built structures and those that were unoccupied.
Well, absolutely. That's what he says. He says that this decision was an administrative process. According to him, he says that they relied on administrative decisions to actually go ahead with these evictions. And of course, he says that they do regret this particular action. And of course, emphasizing on the fact that Mayor Herman Mohlabe has been actually saying that they are likely to go back in the area to rebuild those 80 houses. But of course, this actually causes some sort of divisions, because we hear from the Total Shutdown Committee, and of course, these are the residents that were actually active during that particular protest that we saw early April, saying that there is no way Mayor can go back to rebuild those houses, because according to him, or according to the city of Johannesburg, these structures were illegally erected. These structures were illegally built in the area. So how is it that the Mohlabe decides to go back to rebuild these houses on illegal, following illegal occupation? And of course, the city manager kept on emphasizing the fact that, well, according to him, he is aware and he has got evidence that these structures were vacant. There was no one there. But as I said, Balisa, it's far from convincing. According to the commission, they are saying that the city should have actually thought about this quite better. They didn't give anyone or residents notification in terms of these evictions. So clearly some sort of human violation in terms of their rights there did take place on Friday, and this needs to be addressed. But as I said, the commission far from being convinced by this explanation.
Yeah. As you say, the commission is not impressed with the presentation from the city manager. What happens next, and who's likely to appear before the inquiry, Maageketla?
Well, at the moment, we understand that water and sanitation are actually making their submission, and of course, we actually sat and listened to what they had to say. Of course, they kept on repeating what's been said throughout this inquiry. They are still emphasizing that the three spheres of government, here you're talking about national, provincial, as well as local government or the municipality of Johannesburg, they need to really come together and come with a plan to actually address the issues that affect the people of Alexandra. And of course, they are actually emphasizing on the issue of illegal occupation. In as far as they are concerned, when people are being relocated to be given some sort of alternative accommodation, there will be more others coming to occupy the land illegally. So some bylaws needs to really be effected to stop illegal occupation, which, of course, we had throughout that particular protest to say that there is mushrooming of shacks in Alexandra, and this needs to be stopped, and which is why this inquiry is here, to listen to these kind of issues, and also to listen to different departments as to how they are planning to address these issues.
All right, Maageketla, we'll leave it at this. Thank you so much for that update. SABC News reporter Maageketla